All right, my friends, we're going to be doing a Gaea to Enfusion workflow little workshop here. Most of the stuff that's on Gaea that you'll find online is on how to get it into Unreal Engine. It's a little bit different when it comes to getting into Enfusion. It's a little bit more difficult, I would think. So this is not going to be a Gaea tutorial. This is just basically what's going to happen once we get to our finished terrain here. So I have our terrain here. The things that we're going to need. We're going to need a height map. We're going to be exporting all of these things in PNG 16. We'll need a height map. We'll need a river map if you have rivers. I'm doing lava on this one. We'll do a rock map in order to determine what's going to be those textures for rock. I have a second rock map here so I can cap the top of the volcano as a different color. I have an alternate grass map as well as my sat map, and then I have my water map as well. So some key things on exporting these things. We'll look at our builds here, build settings here. This current map is going to be an 8K map. You want to, instead of just putting 8,000 here, you want to do it as multiples of 1024. It makes it easier for our scale. Our height is going to be 2048. This is due to Enfusion's default height box is 2048. I'll show you that once we get into the engine. You can change it, and you can change this to whatever you want as well, but just most people leave it at default, so I just keep it at 2048. Um, and then as far as this real scale here, this is based off of your resolution to width of the map. So right now we're at 2 meters per pixel. That means I'm rendering at 4K, but my terrain is at 8K. You can render it at a full 8K if you wanted to, which would bring it to a real scale of 1 meter per pixel, but you're going to have too much data on the map that most of the entities that were made in Enfusion or Reforger are based off of a 2 meter per pixel ratio, so all the buildings and stuff like that. If you add a little too much detail, you might have to do a little bit more terrain work when you go to place buildings. That's totally up to you whether or not you want that extra detail or not. I would not go any smaller than 1 meter per pixel. For this, we're going to be doing 4K, and for reference, Altus on Arma 3 was done with a 7.5 meter per pixel. That's how they got their large 16 kilometer maps, because if you're trying to render that at 2 meters per pixel or even 1 meter per pixel, you're going to need a shit ton of RAM in your computer to actually do that. And we all know the RAM prices are ridiculous right now. So we're going to go ahead and build this, and then I will see you in the editor. Oh, let's take a look. One more thing here. We're going to be doing our tree map here as well. Let's see, do I have an export of our tree map? No, we don't. So let's take our trees here, and we're going to do this as a point cloud. And we'll auto level this, and now you can see all of our trees here. We're going to export this as XYZ format. This is for my advanced terrain tools plugin, so I can actually place all of these trees specifically. It looks like we're going to be getting at 8K, we're going to get 32,000 trees, so it might take a little bit of time to do, but it shouldn't be too bad. Mind you, we do not need to mark this with F3 for saving for export at all. This is already an export node, just like these nodes over here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and build, and I'll see you in the editor. Alrighty, we are now in the workbench. We have our Gaea workflow tutorial, our mod folder selected here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to open and show in Explorer, because we're going to make some folders, and I like to do it in Explorer instead. We're going to make a worlds folder, and then we're going to have a folder for our name of our map. I think I named this one just Big Bertha for now. And inside, we're going to create a Gaea folder. This is where all our exports are going to be. So I'm going to go over to the Gaea builds area, which has built everything. And I'm just going to copy my latest and then paste it in there. So now all of this stuff is available for the actual engine when we go to do stuff. All right, so we'll start with that. And now we'll open our world editor. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to save our empty world. We're going to put it in the Big Bertha folder next to the Gaea folder. So name it Big Bertha, and we have it saved. All right, so we start with this world entity here, but a lot of people don't know that there's actually a thing that sets up all of this data here for us. All of this cloud rendering and stuff like that, this can already be automatically set up. So if we go to plugins here, we go down to world setup, and we go to experimental world entity setup, load the world after this, do not save. That is a very key thing that we're going to do here. So we're going to go ahead and click on it. Some people will copy the prefab to themselves, sometimes they don't. It's just if you're worried about this generic world default being changed at any time in the future, go ahead and copy it to your add-on. It's probably actually a wise thing to do depending on how they do their patches, because sometimes they just throw shit at the wall and see if it sticks, and it breaks everything else. So we're going to start with that. We're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to say yes to all. All right, and so now if we look in our console log here, we have a file written successfully. Please load the world to apply changes. We do not want to save at this point. Notice that nothing actually has been changed. We're just going to go directly and open up Big Bertha again. And now our world has been created. Notice that now we have a prefab world instead of the actual entity of a world. Okay. The other thing we can do is this world setup entity setup plugin here. So normally they have a basic config, but I've included this config in the advanced terrain tools, which sets up everything when it comes to what's going to be added here. So if I click cancel here, I'll show you. So it's added everything, all these entities like fog, haze, lighting default, generic world PP, all that kind of stuff like that you're going to find in the Atlas tutorial. Makes it so that you can automatically import them all. So if we go to plugins, world setup, entity setup, we'll have it set up here. We go ahead and click run. Bam, everything is created already for us. Sometimes when they do patches, they will change these prefabs. If you see a prefab that has its GUID instead of its name, go ahead and delete that prefab and just re-import it. That can cause crashing of the engine. Until I get a patch out for it, that's what will happen. But right now for 1.8, it looks like all of these are correct and pointing to the correct thing. All right, so now we'll go to our generic terrain. Let's give a save here real quick. Generic terrain default here, and we'll go to the terrain tool. So we'll create a new terrain. This one's 4096 because it's an 8K map in total. We'll leave everything else the same here. We'll go ahead and create, well, let's name it Big Bertha. That can matter. We'll go ahead and click create. So now we have our terrain. We'll go to our height map. And we need to get the actual height map mins and maxes for this because Enfusion doesn't always import height maps correctly when it comes to Gaea. So we'll go down to Advanced Terrain Tools and we'll go to the Height Map Analyzer. We'll go ahead and select our location here. So I put this in my GitHub, I think. Yeah, GitHub, workflow tutorial, Big Bertha, Gaea, latest, and we'll take a look at our height map. Go ahead and click that. Our target scale is 2048. That's the height box. We set that already in Gaea, and then we'll go ahead and analyze our height map. So now we have a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 857.39. So I'm going to take that, move it to my other screen here just for reference. And then I'm going to go ahead and import our height map. So we have our height map here, Big Bertha, yep. So click our height map. It's a 4096 because we rendered at 2 meters per pixel, remember? And we're going to resample our heights to 0 and 857.39. And go ahead and import. It's going to ask us for our normal vegetation map. People say best nearest, but it's going to be 256 anyways when you go to create something new. All right, so we have our map in here, our height map for our world. I'm going to go ahead and click save. And then at the top here, we're going to wait for our terrain textures to finish. It's always important to let this go all the way. It can start bogging down the more tasks you add to it. So in a couple of minutes, I will skip directly to when this finishes for me. All right, and we're back. Keep in mind, the larger your terrain, the longer that's going to take. All right, so notice that our water is at a different level than everything else. We want our water to be up to near here. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to import our satellite map to see where our shore actually starts here. So we'll uncheck in linear space and we'll go ahead and click OK. All right, so we have our sat map here, and this is where our water line is supposed to be, right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click our terrain. I'm going to hit W for move. Notice that it's selected all the way over there, but I don't want to do it that way. And go up here to move by offset. I'm going to set this to like 0.1 to start. And then I'm just going to click minus, and you can see the terrain is starting to move down and the water is starting to creep up. We are going to place this so that the water line's exactly where we want it to be. Okay. So we still got some space here on this side. Okay, there's that. Let's go ahead and look. Looks like we still got some more to do. Okay, that looks good there. Go around the whole island. Really quickly there. Looks like that's all good. And I think we have it set for... Okay, that's all part of the normal area there. Okay. Keep in mind that there will be some cases of where it's not going to be exact. That's just due to the resolution changes between your height map and stuff. But it looks right because this makes sense to have a nice cliff against the water. Notice that these are quite spiky. That's just a Gaea thing. Gaea does not like working with straight vertical lines, so if you use a distance node, you can bring these out a little bit. But what we'll do is we'll probably just smooth those out later. All right, so it looks like we have our terrain set up with our correct water height. So we'll go ahead and click save. And then it's going to build our terrain textures again up here. So we'll go ahead and wait, and I'll skip to ahead there. All right, so now before we go and do any painting, you'll notice that our generic terrain entity here, we're at negative 19.9 since we had to shift everything down for the water to actually reach where we wanted it to. We want this to be 0, 0, 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this negative 19.9, go back to our terrain tool, and import our height map again, except now we're going to use that as our lowest source. We're also going to go and do 857.39 minus 19.9, which that gives us our maximum value. So now when we go to import, you'll see that everything is much higher, but now we can go back to our object and reset this back to 0, 0, 0. And then now we're back where we started. All right, and then it's going to rebuild terrain again. We'll wait for it for a little bit here. So now let's go ahead and start doing some painting once this gets done. All right, now that everything's done texture tiling, we're going to start doing painting. This can be the most frustrating thing when it comes to the recent 1.8 update. Because they added the far hide vegetation issue, um, it can absolutely break World Builder. So what I've done is I've decreased my camera far plane back from 100,000 or whatever it was down to 2,000, so it's going to render less grass and stuff when we actually end up painting. This part can end up with a lot of crashes, so it can get extremely frustrating. A lot of it is just reopening the map, closing, reopening, et cetera, until shit works. All right. So normally when you go to paint, you'll paint something down and it will ask you, hey, what's your tile size? We're going to do that manually here. We're going to change our surface map size to 256. make sure it's on 256. We're also going to generate our normal vegetation map. When this pops up when you first do your terrain, it will say best nearest, but we're just going to do 256 here too. Okay, so now the moment of truth. We're going to just test paint something here real quick. And it looks like we're working. Okay, good. So we're going to take our grass 3 and we're going to fill the entire map with it. And boop. All right. The next layer that we're going to do is we're going to do our seabed here. Um, if you have an actual shore map, you want to do the shore map first because it will make like a nice line across the shore, and then you would overwrite it with the water map that takes care of the water. But I don't have a shore map on this map. I'll probably just do one manual later. All right, so let's go and do our seabed. We'll right click and we will do our priority service mask import. We'll go to where we're at. GitHub tutorial worlds Gaea latest, and then we'll do our water map. Go ahead and let that build here. All right. So now we have a water map. That's what this orange is. You might have to clean up the shore a little bit, but that's okay. That's just part of, 2 meter per pixel based stuff. You won't see that as much with the lower one, but you have other problems. And then let's go ahead and add our second grass layer on top of this. So let's do a grass 2. We're going to import that. We're going to do our alternative grass map here. Let that build here. Okay, gonna go ahead and save it. Hit Alt X, and now you can see that we have 2 different types of grass here. And you can always change the threshold on Gaea when you actually go to, where do I have it? I have it as my data extractor here. You can take this threshold and you can shift it up and down to get different amounts of grass, of the alternative grass. All right, so now that we have our grass, we're gonna do our rock up here. Let's do like a debris rock for let's do a rock for the main part. So we'll go to here and we'll do our rock map, the first one. Let that cook. All right. And as you can see, it built our rock map around the mountain and everything. I'm going to save here real quick. This might crash when I start to move a lot. All right, so we're good there. And the rest of the mountain's up there. And we're going to take our rock map 2, which is like the little cap of the mountain. And I think I'm going to do it as like this, let's see here. Let's just do it as a debris rock V2. I have no idea what this one looks like, but let's see what this looks like. Let's do rock map 2. All right, it's going to generate that across the map. Okay, and now we should have 2 different types of rock here. Yeah, so we got that rock, and then we got the other rock that's blending into. See that? All right, and then let's do our soot map here. I created a special material here. Basically, how to do this is you go to dirt, whatever you want to do, you go to show, navigate into folder, and then you right click, go to duplicate, and then duplicate it to your actual mod folder. Then when you actually open it, you can see some of these edits here. So I changed the color really dark, and then I also took away the pebbles on the clutter config. So now when I paint, it looks like a pure blackish type thing. We really actually could probably make this even more black. So let's take this, go up here, and we'll make it real black. And then we'll save that and take a look. Yeah, a little bit different, but not by much. All right, so we'll right click on that, click import from, and we'll do that as our burned land. that build up. Okay. And the burned land doesn't let you see through the dirt. It doesn't have like a see-through for sap map, so you can keep it that way and paint your lava on top of it. Or you could just change the style of it. So I think I used debris rock 2 on that one. Let's see. Yep, V2 up there. So let's just do V1 down here. And we're going to import this as the river map. We'll let that cook up here. Okay. So now we can visualize where we will actually make our river generation. You can always change this and make it thicker and stuff like that. All right, so, and you can do that in Gaia too. You can actually go to your river map, which would be like right there. We can export our rivers, which is going straight into this mixer here. But you can actually go and take this river map here and, it's pretty precise lines. You can actually put this on a, see, if you were to take this mask here, and then we go to dilate, you can actually make it thicker. So you can export this instead, and it will make your rivers thicker. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do for painting. Everything's painted at the major parts of it. So we'll go ahead and save that. And now we're going to move on to importing the trees. This is an optional thing if you have a point cloud on your Gaia here, which will be here, this tree map. We auto level it to make sure it pops up so we can actually see that we're exporting the correct thing. And we're going to export it as an XYZ format. So now we'll go and we'll create a new layer. We'll just name this tree import. Make sure it's active. Go to plugins, point cloud import tool, and then we're going to select our point cloud out right here. And then I've just created it so that there's 2 different types of trees here with different weights. And then we're going to go ahead and actually before we do this, I need to make sure you guys know that you need to have these boulders placed at each corner of the map. And you do this by setting 0, 0, 0 for one of them, and then one corner of the map, the other corner of the map, the far corner of the map, and then one that's 0, 0, 0, and then has your height map here, which will be 2048. What you'll see here is above our map. Okay, and that gives us our entire height box. Now I gotta find where our terrain is. Okay. It's a little difficult to find. I might have to bump this up just temporarily because I don't want it to crash on me. There we are. Okay, and then I'll just bump that back down. All right. So now we're going to import. This makes it so that my import tool goes a lot faster. If you don't have these, your bounding box is going to update with every tree that's built, and it's going to just bog down the system so incredibly much. So we'll go to point cloud import tool. We'll set up our terrain size and all that kind of stuff like that, and we'll go ahead and click import. Select it to run, and bam, we created 76,000 entities. And there is all of our trees that we have built in Gaia that follow kind of a realistic pattern. Now, I didn't have a filter on Gaia to block the trees from generating in this area. You can do that, or you can just go to the selection tool up here, this object selection brush, and you can try to just select everything in there like that. Just hit delete, and bam, that's complete there. Alrighty, and that gives you pretty much where you need to go starting off on the actual world builder. From here, you can just take the layer itself and you can hide the layer if you need to start placing buildings and everything like that, and then just re-enable it. But that's pretty much how you'll get everything done on on the actual Gaea to Enfusion workflow. Pretty neat. The downside to using this import tool that I've built is that you don't get nice bushes along the outsides of your forest, which is okay. You can go back in and draw bush lines and stuff too. Um, the alternative to doing a point cloud import is you can actually just take this export here, go into Enfusion, go to the terrain tool, and this info and diags area lets you create custom masks. You can go ahead and click that mask. We'll do it as, oh, I didn't export it as that mask. So what you would have to do, instead of a point cloud, you'll also have to export this as a mask. So you could just do it as um, a PNG 16. And then we can actually just dilate this a little bit or blur it just a little bit. And then make it strong. And that kind of gives you an idea when you go to import it into your custom mask section. It'll draw all of this on the map as red, and you can draw your splines around them to create your forest generation. So like for instance, I go and use this grass maps alt here. So this is like all of my alternative grass and stuff. You can toggle it on and off. So, but you'd put your tree map there and it lets you draw your trees. And then of course, I get a crash.